Welcome to Black Art is Lit. I'm your host, Nakira Cheney. On this episode, we're reading Just As I Am by Cicely Tyson. And I struggled trying to find a way to enter into this episode. It was like, do I start with talking about it, or do I talk about what she was in stories? And it's just like, Cicely, and I say that not to remove any reverence from the name, but we said Cicely because we just grew up knowing Cicely Tyson. She was a name that was I can remember my grandmother talking about Cicely Tyson and the movies and all of those from her heydays. And so, it was an interesting feeling just trying to figure out how to, but it was like, in this time, I really feel like you don't have to, because her words, she's able to speak for herself, and she left us with this. So that's what I'll do. Just as I am. Just as I am is my truth. It is me, plain and unvarnished, with the glitter and garland set aside. In these pages, I am indeed Cicely, the actress who has been blessed to grace the stage and screen for 6 decades. Yet I am also the church girl who once rarely spoke a word. I am the teenager who sought solace in the verses of the old hymn for which this book is named. I am a daughter and a mother, a sister and a friend. I am an observer of audacious dreams. I am a woman who has hurt as immeasurably as I have loved, a child of God divinely guided by his hand. And here in my 9th decade, I am a woman who at long last has something meaningful to say. And I think that is absolutely amazing. Chapter 1, Planted. Like a tree planted by the water, I shall not be moved. The vow. I know instantly whether I should take a role. If my skin tingles as I read the script, then it is absolutely something I must do. But if my stomach churns, I do not touch the project, because if I did, I end up on a psychiatrist's couch. Either my spirit can take the story or it cannot, and my senses have never misled me. This is how I knew with unequivocal assurance that I was meant to act in Sounder, the 1972 film about a loving family's struggle during the Depression. What I didn't know is how Sounder's tide would carry me toward a profound purpose, one spawned by comments from strangers. The role offered to me in the film wasn't the one I would have chosen. "We want you to play the school teacher," the producer said to me as they handed me the script. Yet as I read the story, I felt certain I was meant to portray the mother, Rebecca, the wife of Nathan. Nathan was his family's backbone. Rebecca is robust and steady heartbeat. In that mom's devotion, in the tender way she cared for their 3 children, even as she rested her palm in the small of her husband's back, I recognized my own mother. "But you're too young, too pretty, too sexy to play the mom," I was told. I was 47 then. Though for years at the suggestion of my first director, Warren Coleman, I've been claiming to be a full decade younger, with taut cocoa skin clinging to my secret. "What does my appearance have to do with acting?" I retorted, amused that I, a schoolgirl once called a skinny little nappy head, was now being ruled out as too attractive. As an artist, I should be able to portray anyone. But the producers wouldn't hear of it. 3 months went by and the team was still searching for an actress to play Rebecca. Meanwhile, feeling no less convinced that I was destined for the role, I had Rebecca's lines down. Do you hear me? Another month passed. I received a call from Bill Haber, my agent at the time. "Well," he said, excelling into the receiver, "you got the role of the mother." I didn't say a word. "Did you hear me?" he pressed. "Yes, I heard you," I answered calmly. "So when do we begin?" "But aren't you excited?" he asked. "About what?" I said. I knew all the time that the role was mine. I was just waiting for them to discover it. An actress the producers had gone after had wanted more money than they were willing to pay, and so she passed on the film. I could have saved them the trouble of their negotiation because the role was never for her. The money wasn't much, Haber explained. I earned around $6,000, a pittance even in those days. Yet I would have taken the role for half of that. It's how convinced I was that Rebecca was my character. When filming began in Baton Rouge in spring 1971, the nation had teetered off balance. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was gone. His life sliced short 3 years earlier by a bullet thundering across a hotel balcony. On that fateful evening in Memphis, the civil rights movement had lost not only its leader, but also its way. Wandering in search of a new path forward, it was in this America, one grieving and limping from a deep racial beckoning, that blaxploitation cinema found a fertile audience. In a spat of films during the early 1970s depicting early life, the black man, muted over centuries by bigotry's cruel muzzle, at last got to play the hero in his own storyline. But this newfound creative freedom came at a cost. In my mind, these films gave rise to a misery more harrowing than the realities they portrayed. The black woman was often cast in a powerless supporting role or as a hypersexual female eager to fall into bed. Ghetto life and vulgarity were glorified. Even still, theatergoers seemed ravenous for this movie genre, and directors driven by profits rushed to satiate that appetite. During this period, a producer had the gall to say to me, "Niggas want sex and violence, and we plan to give them both." He did not flinch as he spoke. Given the box office success of films such as Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, making a movie about a tight-knit black family of Louisiana sharecroppers took some nerve. Marty Ritt, a gem of a director, clearly had plenty of it. With characteristic zeal, he forged ahead with filming Sounder, which was based on an award-winning children's novel and adapted for the screen by Lonnie Elder. I did not know how the movie would ultimately resonate, nor was that my chief concern. I was focused on emptying my soul into Rebecca, my first lead role in a major film. Sharing the stage with me was Paul Winfield, who played Nathan, and Kevin Hooks, who portrayed David, the eldest of our children and the son who narrates the story. Paul, who'd already become known for his star turn in the 1968 NBC sitcom Julia, with my beloved friend Diane Carroll, was to be Sounder's headliner. I, then in the infancy of my film career, wasn't slated to even have my name listed on the movie's poster. Circumstances will later have something to say about that. Before Sounders released, I traveled across the country on a promotional tour with some of the other cast members. From San Francisco to Boston, Indianapolis to Richmond, reporters who previewed the film gathered to interview me about the production. It was during my stop in Philadelphia that the earth quaked. Among the group of reporters stood a Caucasian gentleman, auburn-haired and around age 30. He cleared his throat, lifted the microphone to his lips, and locked his gaze onto me. "I have a confession to make," he said slowly, as if calculating the impact of what he would reveal. "I never thought of myself as being the least bit prejudiced," he said. But as I watched the film, I just could not believe that the son was calling his father Daddy. That is what my son calls me. Silence blanketed the room. "Well, child, I'll tell you." My mouth fell open like a broken pocketbook. As this man's words shuddered through me, I forced a smile. But all the while I was thinking, my Lord, how appalling. This man clearly knew nothing about our shared humanity. He had no understanding of God's multi-hued creation, of his place next to yours and mine. In that colorful family mosaic, from his perspective, there had to be something radically wrong with a black child calling his father Daddy, a term he thought reserved for his own kind. How could Nathan, once declared 3/5 human by our Constitution, be worthy of such endearment? How could a fraction of a man stand forehead to forehead with him? That would put Nathan on par with all those born into the privilege of whiteness, as he had been. I don't know what stunned me more, the fact that the man believed what he did, or that he had the audacity to say it aloud. After a lengthy pause, I regained my composure and my tongue. "I have to congratulate you, sir," I said, my tone tinged with sarcasm. "It takes a lot of courage to stand up here in the midst of your peers and admit you never thought you were prejudiced until you saw the film. Thank you." I was so disturbed by what I heard that in that moment, this was the only response I could muster. I left that press conference saying to myself, maybe it's just this one. Surely amid the shrill call for equality sounded during those years, there couldn't be many who shared this man's view. This is how I attempted to console myself. Yes, as I continued touring the country, I became acquainted with an America I had seldom encountered up till then. At that time, I considered myself fairly knowledgeable about this nation I have always called home. I had grown up in New York and lived either there or in Los Angeles, two culturally progressive cities. But outside of that bubble, in the many towns and communities I regularly flew over, the seed of Dr. King's dream might have been sown, but it obviously had not germinated. During a stop in the Midwest, another reporter's comment reinforced that notion. "I didn't know that black men and women had the kind of loving relationship that we see between Nathan and Rebecca," a young woman stated. "Their connection didn't seem believable to me." I was so taken aback by her assessment that I did not respond. So seldom had black families been portrayed nurturing one another on screen that when art indeed imitated life, the truth of that narrative was met with deep skepticism. Embedded in this woman's observation was an assumption that lives at the center of all bias. You're not like me. You're intrinsically different, and that difference deems you inferior. I recognized these comments for what they were, pure ignorance. Anger would have been the justified response, and for a time in private, I was certainly apoplectic. But as life has taught me more than once, resentment corrodes the veins of the person who carries it. These reporters' beliefs, however offensive they may have been to me, were not a bitterness to be nursed. They were a lesson to be heeded. So rather than recoiling in an exasperation at the ideas expressed, I leaned in and listened intently at every remaining tour stop. Much of what I heard mimicked what those two reporters had dared voice, and the more aware I became of the bigotry that existed against black people, what might have been reason to cease became for me a reason to pursue my craft with new purpose. I returned home from the road saying to myself, "Sister, you got some educating to do." It was at this juncture that I made a conscious decision. I would use my profession as my platform, a stage from which to make my voice heard by carefully choosing my projects and portrayals. I could not afford the luxury of simply being an actress. Yes, I was already selecting only those roles that gave me goose pimples, just as Rebecca did and Sounder had. But as an artist with the privilege of that spotlight, I felt an enormous responsibility to use that forum as a force for good, as a place from which to display the full spectrum of our humanity. My art had to both mirror the times and propel them forward. I was determined to do all I could to alter the narrative about black people, to change the way black women in particular were perceived by reflecting our dignity. When I made the choice to pursue acting, the last thing in the world I intended to be was an actress for the cause. Like most artists, I expected to continually hone my craft by playing all types of roles, with little consideration for how those portrayals might impact the cultural dialogue. But the racial climate called for something more of me, and while traveling this great land, I resolved to answer in the one way I knew how. Never once during the billowing smoke of the civil rights movement would I be spotted at a Woolworth lunch counter, braving a sit-in while hate mongers hurled spit at me. Never would I parade up and down the boulevards of Selma or Montgomery, a picket sign thrust high alongside my shouts. I admire the freedom fighters who took to the streets, but it wasn't in my makeup to demonstrate in these ways. Nonetheless, I was set on speaking in the one place I felt courageous enough to do so, on the stage. I protested using not only my words, but those of the characters I inhabited. 50 years after I made a silent pact with myself to play women whose legacies uplift us, that vow still guides me. This life is something. When you've lived as long as I have, others always seem to be asking, how are you? I'm here, still. I'm fond of responding. God must have more work for me to do that I haven't yet done. Over nearly a century, I witnessed the time shifting, even as I watched them come swinging back around full circle to the moment we are standing in today. There is more of this glorious pilgrimage in my rearview mirror than there is up ahead. When I think now on the promise I made all those seasons ago, I recognize it as a defining moment, one from which scores of others would follow. And what preceded that pivot was a miracle that confounds me. That a reticent girl, born in the slums and bathed in the mighty timbre of a church organ, ever stumbled into such a grand arena. That was chapter 1 of Cicely Tyson, Just As I Am. And I got stuck at that. There is more of this glorious pilgrimage in my rearview mirror than there is up ahead. And I think that she said that mighty well. Well done. I hope you go out and get this book and uplift the name of Cicely Tyson. Have a good one, guys.